Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass is a childlike, wonder-inducing, nice, imaginative game about a charming child that everyone either hates or loves. Until a few minutes later, when it's a body horror delve into grotesque nightmare fuel. This has a touch of Undertale and your typical RPG Maker horror game, but there's no question this game is Earthbound's lost cousin. And just like Earthbound, it is going to be about as divisive as possible on whether you love or hate it. At a glance, the game wants to juxtapose extremes whenever it can, whether it's the art with bright, near-saturated colors, music that goes from retro-era side-scrollers about kids on adventures to Silent Hill, or the story and characters with vibes of cheer, friendship, rainbows, and malformed pets with their brains oozing out of their noses. The game does some things very well, and most things fairly competently. On the high note, the game knows how to build the atmosphere it wants at all times. The music and ambiance does a great job, especially in creepy areas, of setting the mood. Backgrounds in battles change from elementary classroom wallpapers in the good times to warping symbols meant for chemicals that melt your skin in the bad times. In the dark, enemies will be invisible at first, leaving you unaware of what you are fighting and building a bit of tension. When they want you feeling discomfort, every aspect of the game presentation works together. And if this is what you're looking for, this is as good as you're gonna get from a retro-style indie RPG. The game likes to catch you off guard. It lets you misunderstand interactions that seem harmless before turning it on its head. An early villain group, for example, is a bunch of punks. These are TV show high school bullies. They seem pathetic as their goal is to discourage NPCs from interacting with Jimmy by shaking them. As in literally picking them up and shaking them to bother them. It seems like a laugh early on, but soon after, some NPCs that help you out get horrifically mutilated. This is a lot of what happens in the game, showing you some sort of game or television trope with low stakes, then flipping it on its head. The game's title having the term Pulsating Mass is pretty descriptive of what you'll be encountering. Characters, whether your companions, NPCs, or the villain groups, are quirky with overacted personalities, much like a weekly cartoon, but there's not much interesting for character development or likable characters you can relate to. Pretty much nobody in the game is the type you'll feel bad for when they are brutalized, but you will likely say, wow, that's messed up. Most of the focus of this review has been on all the supporting elements, the story, atmosphere, characters, and art, because that's really what makes the game interesting. At its base, the combat is passable, and it would be considered a mite bland even during the SNES era. Dungeon design and gearing is fairly uninteresting too. There are some average puzzles and one cool Metroidvania mechanic. When you kill some bosses, Jimmy siphons their abilities like Kirby, becoming able to transform into them. Not only does this change his abilities in battle, allowing him to fill any role and quickly giving him access to AoE healing, dots, and debuffs, but you can also change on the dungeon map, and each form has an ability. For example, the flower lets you grow vines on walls to climb to areas that might have chests. The bully lets you shake NPCs to annoy them, and slime can get you through grates and small holes. These give you reason to come back to early areas when you unlock new abilities. But the combat itself is kinda plain. Some enemies have strange abilities, and you can actually change their movesets by doing certain things. For example, the steal ability lets you not only take items, but sometimes other things. Like stealing from an enemy that is 3 turtles stacked on each other might turn them into 3 different enemies that have been knocked over. Whereas stealing an enemy's clothing might make them too embarrassed to move. Your companions are built with specific stats and abilities towards certain combat roles. However, you can equip 2 spellbooks on each that can grant them abilities, like a heal for a character with no healing otherwise. If you do end up enjoying the game, it's a solid 30 hours, 50 with side content including challenge battles. During the regular game, not much grinding is needed to keep up with gear and levels. Overall, Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass is a lukewarm RPG in terms of gameplay and dungeon design, that is completely held up by the supporting elements. The aesthetics, music, visual design, and story elements are all well done and work towards the clear vision behind the game. If this is the type of game you would enjoy from the artistic elements, this could be an 8 or even a 9 out of 10 game. Much like Earthbound, you may find yourself really liking or really hating what the game does. If you're looking just for a solid RPG from a pure gameplay aspect, with fun turn-based combat and dungeons to explore, this is not a great choice. As an overall package, if you don't mind the gameplay portion being basic, this is good for what it does. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass earns a 7 out of 10.